Would you like to win $1,000 for your dad? Well, go to FamilyValuesRadio1010.com and log on once a day, every day, for your chance to win. That's FamilyValuesRadio1010.com. $1,000 for your dad. Check it out.
Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and I hope it finds you well today. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. The website at allamericangold.com, allamericangold.com. We've got another item. This one has to do with, we yesterday I told you about that St. Gaudens, the 1933 saint. There's only one that's allowed to legally be sold. It sold for over $19 million. Before that, however, the most expensive coin was a silver dollar, an 1874 flowing hair dollar. Today we're going to run a gold special that relates to all of this stuff. And I'm going to bring Jason in. Jason's going to come in the second segment. For those of you, and I know, obviously Colorado, you guys know Jason. Jason runs our Colorado office. You Phoenix listeners, when I'm not here, Jason normally fills in. He's like an encyclopedia when it comes to the history of things. We have a coin that is not a common date coin that we're going to run. We actually have some quantity on it. I got a call this morning from one of our great wholesalers. The price is fantastic, and it's really, really interesting. So stay tuned for that. That's going to come up in the second segment. The rest of it, obviously, we'll talk about CPI. Just like I thought, the idiot box is a dangerous place. The cheerleading channels. I listened to Fox, and I wish I hadn't. But, it's part of my job. I'm watching Bloomberg. I'm watching CNBC. I'm watching Fox. And he said, it wasn't that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. By the way, the CPI came in at 5%, which we know is really probably more like 13. But, okay, 5. That's 2.5 times more than what they promised us. Oh, no, we'd like 2. So think about this. This is what you need to believe today. This is how stupid we all need to be today. Devaluing your purchasing power by 5% in a month, or well, I guess it's a year-over-year number. In a year, that's not that bad. Now, granted, the problem is that's not even a true number. Here's the amazing part, and this is why, another reason why. Listen, if you haven't gotten your financial house in order, if you haven't gotten your gold in order, you better hurry up. Because I explained it to you yesterday. What should have happened today? Treasury yields should have rose, and the dollar should have gained strength. Neither one of those things happened. Matter of fact, the opposite has happened. The dollar is losing strength. Treasury yields, actually, they were up briefly but by nothing. And Treasury yields are now down a little bit, which just tells you the idiocracy that is upon us. This is a number way beyond comprehension. But of course, hey, it's not that bad. It's okay. They turned a dollar into 95 cents. Here's the problem. They really turned the dollar into about 88 cents in 1 year. And that's what they did. And they're saying, it's fine. Because you know what? Here's the realities. Inflation's got to go a lot higher. And it's going to continue to go a lot higher. And they can do all the substitutions and mathematical formulas they want. But here's the problem. Why? Why wouldn't they start preparing for it? I mean, at the very least, at least talk about it. Oh, no, it's just transitory. Don't worry. Because they know. The second we do something, the bubble pops. And the bubble's going to pop, and you better have that gold before it does. It's okay to be a little early. And we can even argue, you're probably not early anymore, right? You be a little early, but you can't be late. Remember when gold hit its all-time high, but then Jay Powell and Janet Yellen, right? Joe Biden wins. And there's going to be no inflation, don't worry. In 1670, gold would get to 1670. Wouldn't ever go through 1670, but that was like the bottom. And then gold would bounce, and it'd go 1700, couldn't cross 1800. 1870 is the new bottom. Matter of fact, while we were sleeping, it went back to 1870. Bounced right off, and here it comes. Here's the problem. I can tell you what the next new bottom is going to be. The next new bottom is going to be 2100, 2300, 500, 3000, 5000, 10,000. Patriot Radio News Hour. When we get back, we got a really cool item coming up next. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour here on this Thursday. It's just incredible. It just baffles the mind. It's fine. Don't worry. It won't last forever. Who cares if we lose 5, 6, 10, 12, 20% of your buying power? It's all part of the master plan out there. But this is why you put this gold away. And, it's kind of ironic today. The call I got this morning after what happened, with that 33 St. Gaudens, I was telling you about that flowing-haired 1874 silver dollar. Today, I've got 50. And I'll be honest with you, I've never seen 50 of these. Ever. There are people out there that when these coins are, that's all they do is buy them. And there's people out there that have hundreds of this particular coin. It is an 1878 San Francisco Mint $20 Liberty. Now, obviously, we sell Liberties, the Liberty Series 1866 to 1907. And they're minted, the Philadelphia Mint, the New Orleans Mint, the San Francisco Mint. I mean, there's some Carson City in there. The Carson City ones, those always have a big premium. But this particular date, 1878S, is what we would consider a rarer date coin. So when you're buying coins from us, chances are you're not getting any 1878 S's. Probably get a bunch of 1878 Philadelphia mints or whatnot, but this is a rarer date, a rarer mint mark. And I happen to be talking to Jason about it, because that's what I do. When we get an item, I call Jason, hey, this is what I'm going to run today. And then Jason just started talking all about it. I mean, he knew all about it. And I was like, dude, you got to come on. I mean, you know more about it than I do. So I asked him to join us today. Jason, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm right listening to everything.
All right, so you started telling me why it was that this particular date and this particular mint mark was hard to come by. And you said, really, it started with the ending of the Civil War. So why don't you go ahead and explain to the listeners exactly what you were telling me?
Yeah, and there's the funniest thing about the education we have about our history is that some of the most fascinating times in American history is when there wasn't war, when the moneyed powers that didn't have a central bank after Andrew Jackson killed it, they just kept poking holes at the American government and the American people to get their power back. And the Civil War and all these other things, when there was no central bank, has to do with the bankers trying to get the Federal Reserve set up, which they did in 1913. So the coin that Joe is selling, 1878, and this is with all the dates, but yeah, the S is much more rare than the Philadelphia. But they made a lot less of the 1878 gold because the mints were forced to start ramping up silver dollar productions. There was after the Civil War was over, Abraham Lincoln, was reelected and then immediately assassinated. His greenback money was going to be a freeing type of money for pretty much all of civilization. The bankers in England were mortified at what had happened and that they had no ability to stop what Lincoln was doing, so they killed him. And then they got their banker-backed candidates in Congress to start burning out and destroying all of the greenbacks out of the system. And this created a back-and-forth economic struggle from 1866 all the way to the early 1900s. And they used gold actually as a weapon. They tried to control the gold markets. In 1870, they actually, you could see, there's pictures of a chalkboard of a couple of massive up and down gold days to where these bankers were loading their pockets. And then they went about making it, America try to force them into a gold-only money system, which they could control. So
let me get this right. In the early 1870s, they tried to get rid of silver out of the money?
Yeah, so in 1873, they had what was called the Crime of 73, where they just decided to demonetize silver dollars, stop making silver dollars, start making less silver half dollars and quarters and dimes, move it more to a gold money system, and then start making more paper for the banks. And the banks would have nothing there to back it up except for gold. Silver dollars and silver was the working man's currency. You have to have both. You can't just have gold because gold can be manipulated, and because it's precious. There's less of it. So and I got one clip I'm going to play you, Joe, here in a minute. That's really cool because 1873, the gold bugs, the gold guys, they were removing silver out of circulation, and we had this mint. We had this Carson City mint that was just bringing tons of silver out. It was hugely successful for the average working man in America to have all this silver come into the money supply. And they're like, well, we can't have that. The bankers are like, oh my God, look at all this silver coming in. It's making the average guy rich. It's just making them happy. So they got their legislators in there and like, well, let's get control of the silver thing. And a couple of years later, people were so outraged at the Crime of 73 that by 1878, here comes the Morgan silver dollar. And Carson City started cranking them out.
Let me stop you right there. So by 1873, they essentially stopped making silver dollars.
For the most part. There was some out there, but yeah, for the most part.
Right, but that's why like that 1874 flowing hair dollar sold for like $10 million.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Rare coins.
And that, because it was so rare.
Right.
And up until Tuesday, it was the most expensive U.S. coin ever sold until the Saints sold Tuesday for $19 million.
Yeah, and listen to this, Joe. Listen to this. What these bankers were doing from 1866 to 1886, they removed so many greenbacks and money out of the money supply, they contracted the money supply in those 20 years by 84% to create a depression. And if you look at the Great Depression, the money supply was only taken down by 33% in 29 to 33. And then the 08 housing debacle, about 40% of the money was taken out of circulation over about a 3 or 4 year span. They took out 84% of the money to cause this to happen, Joe. This is how extreme their monetary policy was to control. And you're right, the silver dollars of 1874 were very valuable.
Let me ask you this, Jason: raising interest rates, what does it do to the money supply?
Well, it does a lot to the money supply, but it can be helpful and it can be harmful. Both, but
right. In this case, right, we were talking about this would be a weapon of trying to we've created all of this money here recently. This is why the Fed wants to pretend there's no inflation. They can't.
Yes.
They can't even think about raising rates right now. That
No.
would be detrimental to the money supply.
Correct.
But
Correct.
in 1878, they finally relented, and they started. That was the first year of the Morgan dollar. Correct.
That's correct. And let me add one last thing, because I'm going to move just past that for a second. The reason they stopped making Morgan silver dollars in 1904, and then they picked up silver dollars in 1921, there's a big reason. This gold versus silver kept going on, and then kind of the height of this back and forth was 1896. William Jennings Bryan was a silver money guy, and he ran against McKinley, a gold-only money guy. And McKinley won that election, and William Jennings Bryan did the best he could to protect the American public from these bankers. But after the second term of McKinley from 1900 to 1904, which he was assassinated, that was it. The silver dollars, they stopped making them. That we got the central bank in 1913, and then it was okay to start making silver dollars, because once they got the power to create the money, Joe, it's okay to have silver at that point. That's why the gap.
The Morgan dollar made a 1 year appearance again in 1921.
Yep.
But why? So, having said that, the reason why the 1878, and Jason's right, it's actually rare in all mints. Philadelphia Mint, the San Francisco Mint, they made less of them because all of these mints had to start making silver again.
That's right. The American people rose up against this gold-only money thing that was being pushed on them, and the public and Congress at that point was leaning more towards silver again, because it was. I mean, people were really angry. This was a big deal. A political party called the Greenback Party sprung up, and then James Garfield, who wasn't a Greenbacker, he ended up running as a Republican, won the election in 1880. And then was very, he talked about the money policy of Abraham Lincoln and the Greenbackers, and he talked about Andrew Jackson and how bad the banks are. Let me play this real quick, Joe, because this is 1880. He gets elected. This is right around the time that this coin that was minted that we're selling today. This is how crazy things were. Let me play. It's Bill Still, but he's going to do the quote here.
2 years later, in 1880, the American people elected General James Garfield president. Garfield understood how the economy was being manipulated. As a congressman, he had been chairman of the Appropriations Committee and was a member of the Banking and Currency Committee.
Garfield understood the ability of the very wealthy to manipulate gold money. He investigated the cause of the Black Friday gold market scandal of 1869, when financier Jay Gould and others cornered the gold market, causing wild fluctuations in the price. This is a photograph of the actual quote board from the New York gold trading room, which Garfield introduced as evidence during a congressional investigation the following year. This is Garfield's handwriting. After his inauguration, he slammed the money changers publicly.
Here's the quote. This quote is something you got to listen to.
Whoever controls the volume of money in any country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. And when you realize that the entire system is very easily controlled, one way or another, by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and depression originate.
There you go, Joe. That's James Garfield, right around the same time as this coin, saying, hey, we need to take this back. We can't let these central bankers, all in league with the Bank of England, to control what we're doing. And at that point in time, silver was really coming back, and the American people were taking the power back, Joe.
Crazy. It's amazing how throughout history we see these patterns emerge over and over and over and over again. But we have 50. And again, I've never seen more than a couple of these 1878's San Francisco Mint $20 Liberties. We've got 50 of them, and I went everywhere online. The cheapest price I found, I did find one place that actually had them, and they wanted $2,240. Everywhere else was $2,400, $2,500, $2,600. I've got these 50 at $2,200. which, a regular, let's just call it a 1904 lib, which is just common date, regular Liberty. It's $2,185. So to get a rarer date, especially with the history of this, and thank you so much for Jason to coming on to educate us. It just, all of it made perfect sense because I couldn't understand yesterday, why is that 1870, why would that flowing hair be worth so much? Now it makes perfect sense. And then why would 1878, why would that be a rare date? And that was because all the mints had stopped minting silver. And then, of course, we got the silver back in the money supply, and so they were minting primarily the Morgan dollars. And so they minted a lot less gold that year. This is a price, like I said, unmatched anywhere in a quantity that I've never seen. I'll probably never see it again. That's my guess. I don't think I'll ever see these again. It was just a rarity where, as the guy was telling me, he goes, well, there's a handful of guys that buy all of these. And one of these guys liquidated some of those for whatever reason, and that's why they're available today. $2,200, the 1878 S $20 Liberty. We'll be back. 800-951-0592. Kind of cool. Not kind of, really cool. A huge part of our nation's history, and the this particular date, this 1878 S, representing the bankers at work. Right? They were, there was no central bank during the entire Liberty series. None. Zero. I mean, we had a civil war. We had become a superpower, right? I mean, we were the largest. We were the Chinese back in the day, right? Everyone bought stuff from us. Without this central bank, but the bankers were always trying to get back into power. And, I don't know history as well as Jason, but Jason will tell you flat out, the bankers were willing to do whatever by any means necessary, including killing presidents. I mean, that's, and again, don't take my word for it. But there's a lot of things, and this is just another one of those examples where they tried to cause a crash by taking all the silver out. Because let's face it, think about this. At $20 in 1878, dude, you were walking around with $20. You were big time. People didn't have $20 in their pocket. They may have had $1. So it just makes sense in 1878, that when they finally were able to thwart off the bankers, if you will, and get silver back in production, that the 1878 gold coin would become, especially a $20 gold coin, would become a rarer date. So we had, I don't know how many are left. We had 34 before I started talking. We started with 50. These are going very, very quickly. We still have a couple of lines open. They're $2,200. These are the 1878 S, which is the San Francisco Mint. $2,200 at 800-951-0592. Gold's up again today. Was again $1,895. Silver's right at $28. The Dow's up about 100 points, and the 10-year note is actually lower. The dollar is lower. Stanley Druckenmiller just went off today, telling CNBC this is a complete farce after the CPI number came out. By the way, remember what I told you about 2008? That's exactly what they said on the TV. That's the highest number since 2008. Remember I told you, dude, that's a sham. You know what happened? Why the number was so high for that brief period of time in 2008? That was $100 crude. People forget that. That was $100 crude. And then boom, and then Lehman went under, boom, no more inflation. The core inflation number, just so you know, because, you know, the Fed hates the headline number, that 5% number. They don't like that number. The core number, the highest since 1992. What? And the 10-year note fell. The dollar fell. And Stan Druckenmiller, who, by the way, you know, and you guys know, he's from Duquesne, one of the richest people in the world. And I'll tell you this, and I know this may make some people mad, but it is what it is. You know, he grew up under a guy named George Soros, so you may want to pay attention to what he says. He called it a complete farce. The market is not speaking right now, he said. May's CPI data is not speaking right now on May's CPI data and will not until the Fed stops canceling market signals. And at that point, we will know. So some pretty strong words out of Stan Druckenmiller saying the Federal Reserve is trying to cover it up. It's a huge cover-up. Right? Sorry, be patient. We'll get to you in the answer that you called, the 1878S at $2,200. But I thought it was worth noting because they want you to believe, see, it's okay. It's just going to be transitory. Everybody just believe them. No, it's not. No, it's not. If it was, you know what? Listen, if it was true, stop buying the bonds. Stop. Don't buy 40 billions in mortgages. Don't buy all the treasuries. Force the banks every night to not leave their money at the reverse repos. See the latest number? $500 billion. They're supposed to be out there buying bonds. They're supposed to be out there loaning money. They don't want to do it. And, of course, it makes sense. A 10-year note is yielding 1.48%, and you just said headline inflation was 5%? And, of course, the bankers know that's not a real number. Let's see. You're devaluing by 5% that you're willing to admit to. But you want me to buy a 10-year note that yields 1.48. Are you listening? Is any of this sinking into you at all? This is a house of cards. And here's the problem now. They've pushed this house of cards. Look at the debts, right? Between the Fed's balance sheet and the debt of the federal government, forget about cities and states and all the rest. You got $40 trillion. Housing prices are so high, nobody can afford them. Right, by the way, are you seeing a lot of cooling signs in this housing market? And I want to be wrong on that. I want to be wrong, but this is the reality. This isn't anything other than common sense. They are deliberately trying to misrepresent the market. Now, are they trying to misrepresent the market in a good way or a bad way? And the answer is simple. They're trying to misrepresent the market in a way that doesn't actually reflect what the realities actually are. That just screams one word: overvalued and crash. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Let's just be protected. That's all. It's not going to be the end of the world. So we're going to a digital currency. And the more money you have in the debt system, the more pain you're going to have. It's just that simple. That's all. So how much pain do you want? The more gold and silver you buy, the less pain you're going to have. By the way, we're running out of the 1878S. That's the special we have running today at $2,200. If we run out, I guess probably more when we run out, I will honor yesterday's CU prices on the Liberties and the Saints at $2,200. So you'll still be able to get gold at $2,200. But when we're out of the S, we're out of the S. But we're not out yet. So if you want to grab some, do it now.
I have a question, Joe. What condition?
Go ahead,
what condition are those coins in? I got a question from a buyer.
Yeah, these are XFVFs. So these are actually not even circulated. These are better than that. So this is. Again, I thank you for pointing that out. I didn't even say that. So
yeah, I had a customer like, "What condition are those in?" And so I'm going to go. I'll get back to them, Joe. Thanks.
These are not. Now, let me clarify. These are not beat up, worn down. Listen. Are they perfect specimens? Of course not. But if you bought 20s from us, that's what they're going to be. They're going to look just like all the other 20s that we do. Here at Patriot. So you're going to be able to read these dates as clear as bells. You're going to be able to see the bit mark clear as a bell. So don't worry about that whatsoever. And of course, if they weren't, we wouldn't do them. We wouldn't run them. We don't do that. We don't mess around with low quality stuff out there. So thank you, Jason, for jumping in on that. 800-951-0592. And I said in VF and XF because that's how we got to 50. And again, I've never seen 50 of these ever. And you take all my 18 years, and I actually got 18 now. God, is it 18? 18 years. I haven't seen 50 of these in 18 years. I've probably seen 5. So 800-951-0592. So we're talking about the debt system. How much pain are you going to buy? I'm telling you, the digital currency's coming. I know you still don't want to believe me. The Swiss National Bank and the Bank of France said that they are going to start the European trial of the first cross-border central bank digital currency payment. Here you go. As I told you, it's going to be the entire debt system. This is going to be a global thing. This is going to be how China emerges and takes another big leap forward as a central bank currency. Go back. What was it, 2016? When they let them into the basket of currencies at the IMF? Then really, no one really did anything. And then all of a sudden, 2018, 2019, people started using it. Then all of a sudden here in the last year or so, the Chinese currency's probably doubled. It's still a low number, but doubled in use. You got to remember, the Chinese currency all by itself, it's actually bigger than ours in stuff, but in dollar terms, it's going to pass the United States here in the next couple of years. So its use is widespread, believe me. But this is going to elevate them. They're going to take a big leg up. And we're going to continue to take that big leg down because of the debt. So now France and Switzerland said they're going to be the first trial of cross-border payments now of the central bank. This is what they're focused on now. It looks like central bank digital currency. That's the acronym CBDC, central bank digital currencies. The banks announced this morning a move that will be the first for the two of the world's top currencies. What? Well, I guess the euro, right? And then the Swiss franc. And so anyway, I guess, sort of. The euro, yes. The Swiss franc, not really. The focus on bank-to-bank wholesale lending markets rather than everyday public transactions. So again, this is going to be kind of like maybe the new SWIFT system, right, where you have cross-border trade that's done with central bank digital currencies, which, again, that's really, for me, that's really scary. Because, you remember, the Fed, first of all, they never admit there's any inflation, say they want inflation. Now they're saying it's okay if inflation runs hot. When they go to this digital currency, if the inflation number isn't what they like, all they got to do is go in their computer. They don't have to raise rates. We know, listen, lowering and raising rates, that was a farce. That actually doesn't work, does it? It didn't work. I mean, rates have been zero for how long? Doesn't work. But they can get all the inflation they want now. You know what? We don't have to worry about China manipulating its currency. We can just say, clickety-clack on our computer, that all the crap we buy from China costs 10% more today. And we can do it with the central bank digital currency. Switzerland's UBS, Credit Suisse, and France's national banks all involved in the project. The Eurozone adapting a strong trend towards digitalization of payments, according to the Bank of France. By the way, Europe had their meeting today, their Fed meeting today. Same thing. Yeah, we're not worried about inflation, and we're going to keep buying bonds. Everything's great, business as usual, blah, 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 blah. How much exposure to the debt-laden system do you want? That's really the only question. 800-951-0592. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. I was just thinking, by the way, big shout out. Thank you, Jason, for coming on. It's fascinating. You think about Abraham Lincoln and the Greenbacks was really trying to take the power away from the bankers. And, and of course, he's assassinated. Then they try to get rid of all the greenbacks and then get rid of the silver, causing a depression and deliberately. I mean, this is what they do. And right now, you got all these central bankers singing the same tune. Don't worry, it's fine. So what? We're devalued. It's just transitory. Don't worry. We're in charge. And so this 1878S, the reason why it's such a hard date is because that's when the Morgan dollar came into existence. Because they figured out what the bankers were up to and were able to act. We can't even act anymore. Now we're just slaves to the banks, aren't we? I mean, who was the last real maverick out there grilling the Federal Reserve? I mean, Ron Paul was the last. I mean, who is it today? There isn't anybody. I mean, you got his son who grills Fauci. But now we've got the evilest banker of all time, Janet Yellen. You think about this. Think about Kamala Harris and that disaster trip she just took, right? No one should let her out. Put her back wherever she wants. Put her back. How about Joe Biden? His first trip out, he's over there in Europe, and guess what he says? The biggest threat, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's got to be China. Nope. Are we going to do the Russian card, maybe? I know. How about the hackers? Well, CJBS, I told you they paid that fine. $11 million they paid. Maybe that's the biggest threat. No. Oh, the biggest threat is climate change. Yes, that's the threat. We are in big trouble. The wolf is guarding the hen house, and nobody's home. Nobody's home. Right? Donald Trump did his best to get rid of Janet Yellen. They brought her right back. Listen, it's coming, and it's coming a lot faster than you think. This is a great coin, great opportunity, and like I said, when we run out, we'll do the CUs from yesterday. The 1878S great piece of history, a great investment. How much exposure do you really want to these debt markets? Heed the words of Stan Druckenmiller. These aren't real markets. Don't have all of your wealth in something that isn't true. Right? We know that. That's why, and I say it all the time, be diversified. I'm diversified. Now, granted, my son is my financial planner, but I'm diversified. But believe me, my wife's on my you-know-what. We are continuing to accumulate an ounce of gold for every year you've been alive, your wife's been alive, your kids have been alive, your grandkids. Get it put away. 800-951-0592. The 1878S, the San Francisco minted $20 Liberty at $2,200. Thank you all so much. Big shout out to Jason and for explaining all of this stuff to us. God bless everybody. Here's the great part. Tomorrow's Friday. One more show before we wrap up the week. Take care.